All right, you all know that we have a seminary program at InterQuest, and in the 5th year, which is the last year of the program, immediately prior to full ordination, which means they are full-fledged ministers, the students are coming to share a message with you all. So today, Robbie will be sharing her message. And I can tell you that I've watched Robbie all these years and seen her veracity for spirit. It wasn't just through any avenue. It was God talk to me however, show me in everything who you are. And so she is a very interesting student as well to have. Many questions, many different perspectives to look at. So she comes to you today with a heart that was open to hear. So I welcome Robbie Hunt to give us our message today.
So this month we have been talking about energy, where and how we invest it. Last Sunday Cindy kicked off the topic and she talked about renewal. She encouraged us to move into this new space of energy, and that in moving into this new space of energy, we redirect our energy, and that in redirecting it, we find these new ways to invest our energy, and in doing so, we create these new ways that we can create and express. So continuing along that line, I'm going to be talking to you today about recommitment. Recommitment. Why couldn't I have gotten the topic on renewal? If there is anything that I have been criticized about in the past 6 or 7 years, it is about my inability to commit, or what people perceive as such. In the past many years, I have been called contrary. I have been told that I am not a team player. I have been called unreliable when I didn't fulfill my obligations or my commitments the way that people thought that I should. But then on the other hand, not too long ago, I had someone who said to me, quote, "When Robbie makes up her mind, she is 100% committed." I have people who tell me how reliable I am, how I'm always there, and that I always come through. So what gives? Am I committed or am I not? I would suggest to you that the answer to both of those questions is yes. And I would suggest that the answer to both those questions is yes for most of you who are sitting here today too. Because commitment is this energy, it's an act that we do that we still don't completely understand. And that is what requires us to recommit from time to time. It's in our human nature to commit. You know, it's a part of the human experience. It's certainly a practical part of the human experience. I mean, think about it. If everyone in this room here did not make some kind of a commitment to personal hygiene, it would be very good for us sitting here. And we commit to an awful lot of things. We commit to family and friends, to spouses, to partners. We commit to mortgages and jobs, to ideas and institutions and to concepts. We commit to entire ways of being, to ways of living our life. And in all of that, haven't we all felt 100% committed about something? Yes?
Yeah.
We have been 100% committed about something, and we go forth, and then life happens. And then that 100% commitment becomes 75, 50, 25. 0. When you get into these times, it makes you think, what's exactly commitment? What is it really? So being the good student that I am, I looked it up, in case you wanted to know. Commitment. So this is the traditional meaning from the dictionary, and I've paraphrased it some. To pledge to a position on an issue, to bind, obligate, or promise oneself to a course of action. Now, commitment, modern interpretation of that. Perseverance at all cost, regardless of the obstacles. Keeping a promise regardless of the circumstances or the sacrifice that's necessary. An action that binds one indefinitely. I would suggest you take a break. So as I was preparing for this message and I was sitting in meditation, I asked Spirit, I said, show me what the real energy of commitment is. Not what the dictionary says and what we in our race consciousness say. What is the real energy of commitment? And it was pretty big, and I'm going to read it to you. I want you to take a second, close your eyes as I read this to you so that you hear what I say. True commitment happens when you engage in a particular course of action or thought because it aligns your heart with the heart of God. Enabling you to disregard choices and ideas that do not originate from or vibrate with this alignment. Without this alignment, it is more difficult to recognize and reject actions and thoughts that have the potential to take you off your path. Open your eyes. I think that another way of putting this is the motto that we have here at IQ. The journey of life is to know oneself, and the path begins in the heart. And don't we walk this journey with truly honest intentions to keep our commitments? We get excited about these possibilities that our commitments can bring us, and we understand at a logical level that we need to honor our commitments. No one, I think, gets married with the sole intention to get divorced. And no one enters into an exercise program thinking that they're going to look crappy at the end of it. We're going to be the picture of health, right? When you study the Aquarian in the New Testament, you learn a lot about the Apostle Peter. Peter was one of the most beloved of Jesus' disciples. He's also a perfect example of how difficult it can be for us to honor our commitments. It really can be. And he's an example that it takes something inside of ourselves that we have to shift before we can actually honor our commitments. Toward the end of Jesus' ministry, Jesus is out teaching. He's teaching these multitudes of people. And the people are following him because they have found out about this uncanny ability that he has to take this basket of loaves and fishes and feed thousands of people with it. So they're following him. And he is trying to get their focus off of the food and onto what it is that he's teaching them about. In one of his teachings, he is telling them that he's getting ready to Christ his body. Meaning that he has gotten to the point where he has command over physical matter so much that he's about to do it with his own physical body. And so he encourages them to eat of his flesh and drink of his blood. Well, meaning, get into the Christed consciousness with me. And he tells them if you'll do that, you'll have everlasting life. Well, they're taking him literally. What, eat of your body, drink of your blood? No, and they complain to the people in the temple, and they want him arrested, and they don't follow him anymore. At that point, Jesus decides to speak with his disciples. Let me share with you what he says. I'm going to read from the Aquarian Gospel. This is the end of chapter 125. When Jesus saw the many who had been so loud in their professions of their faith in him turn back and go away, he said unto the 12, Will you desert me in this hour and go away?" But Peter said, "Lord, we have no place else to go. You have the words of everlasting life. We know that you were sent to us from God." And so Peter knew at that moment, he knew that it was his to follow the teachings of Jesus, to follow this master. But did he actually align his heart with it? Did he become committed with it? No, the story continues. It is the night of the Last Supper. And Jesus is there with his disciples, and he is preparing them for the very big events to come. And as he's talking to them, Peter, he chimes in, bless his heart. And I'm reading now from the Aquarium 161. And Peter said, "Lord, where you go, there I will go, for I would lay my life down for my Lord." And Jesus said, "Boast not of bravery, my friend. You are not strong enough tonight to follow me." Now, Peter, hear. "You will deny me thrice before the cock shall crow tomorrow morn." And then he looked upon the 11 and said, "You all will be estranged from me this night." And he talks a little bit more, but Peter's pretty confident about his commitment, and so Peter ends up saying to him, "My Lord, though every other man forsake you, I will not." And Jesus said, "O Simon Peter, lo, your zeal is greater than your fortitude." And haven't we all been there? Zeal greater than our fortitude. And I think you know the story. What happens is that Peter does deny his knowledge of Jesus 3 times. Jesus is taken to Caiaphas, where his journey of his trial and eventual crucifixion is beginning. And you know, whenever Jesus went into a town, people knew who he was. He had his disciples, he had an entourage who went with him. And so people not only knew Jesus, they knew Peter. And people were coming up to him and they're saying, don't you follow this man from Galilee? We know the story. Reading from the Aquarium 165. Then Peter rose and stamped upon the floor and swore by every sacred thing that he knew not the criminal. Now John was standing near, and when he heard the words and knew that Peter had denied his Lord, he looked at him in sheer astonishment. Just then a cock crew loud beneath the court, and Peter called to mind the words the Lord had said, "Before the cock shall crow tomorrow morn, you will deny me thrice." And Peter's conscience smote him heavily, and he went out into the night and wept. Peter eventually goes on to become one of the most influential disciples of Jesus' teachings, but he had his setbacks. What is it that Peter changed in himself that gave him this ability to finally commit to following these teachings, to following them even when that commitment put him at odds with the rest of the world? I think that what happened is that Peter realized that he was not in alignment with his heart. Because notice in that last verse it says that he went out and he wept. In the Lamsa translation it says that he wept bitterly. And we all understand that after a commitment hasn't worked. We have wept bitterly. The realization that you are out of alignment with your commitment is very sobering. Even when our commitments are changed by outside forces, a boss lays you off, a spouse says, "I don't want to be married anymore," we realize at some point that there is an alignment within ourselves that is not in alignment with the heart of God. And we know it because we're miserable. We're discontented. We feel lost and aimless. But this is the time when it's time to recommit. this is the time when you bring your heart back into alignment with the heart of God. So it's actually a very special time when you get to this realization. Recommitment. There is a small space between re and commitment, but I will tell you that it is a very powerful place. So, let me share with you a little bit about what you can do when you're in that space of recommitment and how it can make you understand your commitments more and align with them more. Okay? There are two things that keep us committed. Two things. And the first one is purity of heart. Now, I know all of you were thinking, oh, the first thing is focus and determination and commitment. Those are all aspects of it. But no, it really gets its energy from purity of heart. Purity of heart is this space where you are totally receptive to the thought, to the teaching of God. It is where you let go of opinions, where you let go of attachments, where you let go of being right, of needing to be right. It is a space where you are totally open to this larger vision of what the divine, of what God has, rather than this very small vision that we have in our human life. Early in Jesus' teachings, he is in India. And he's teaching them that their relationship with God is personal, that it's one-on-one, and that it doesn't matter where they are in their caste system, that they have a personal relationship with God. And in showing them this, he tells them God's meeting place with man is in the heart. And in a still, small voice, he speaks. And he who hears is still. Still. When you're still and Spirit comes into your heart, it's so much easier to acknowledge your thoughts and your feelings. And in that space, you see all these beautiful thoughts like love and joy and peace that maybe you thought you weren't even capable of. And in that space, you also get to experience and see some of the not so beautiful thoughts and feelings that you have. Fear, anger, discouragement. But in that space, you get to see how you can remove them. Completely discard them from your life. And because you are sitting in this space, when you're in this part of being pure in heart, you are teachable. And being teachable is very important. Cindy is always telling us in class, if I have to be right, I can't be taught. And I have taken that from the moment she said it in metaphysics to this moment now. And it's true. If I have to be right, I can't be taught. So think of it this way. When you make commitments and they originate out of a place of you that was trying to control, a place of fear or anger, resentment, rage, any commitment that comes from that part of you, from what we would call the lower carnal self, those commitments will be more difficult to maintain. Bottom line. They're going to be more difficult, possibly even impossible to maintain. But, when you're teachable, you get the heads up that that's where you're headed. You get the heads up that that's what you've done. And then it gives you the ability to take those feelings and either align with them or discard them. Being teachable puts you in that space. Purity of heart creates knowing. And it's only from a place of knowing that a commitment becomes a total part of your being. And if it doesn't become a total part of your being, you will not see it through. So be still. Hear that Spirit of God in your heart. And in that space, acknowledge your thoughts and feelings, the ones that you want to align with and the ones that you don't. And let that move you into this purity of heart so that your commitments become this part of you. They're not something outside of you that you just do, or something that you just do automatically. So purity of heart, that's the first place to start. And then the other thing that keeps us committed, letting go of how that commitment is accomplished. We want things the way that we want them, don't we? We have our world set up in such a way that everything is just so-so. And we guard it with this diligence and this bravery that what ends up happening is that the natural flow of life can't come to you. It stops right here. And this natural flow of blessings and opportunities that are so big that you can't see it in your limited vision. And when we're in this place, when we're attached to how something's done, our focus ends up becoming how our commitment is done and not what our actual commitment is. And you'll fail when you're looking at it that way. So what I want to do is share with you a very personal experience of how I came to that point of purity of heart and letting go of how a commitment is actually accomplished. Okay? I began taking the metaphysics classes here at IQ in 2007. And when I walked in the door that day in January, I had no idea that I was putting my foot onto a path that would take me 5 years, the path of seminary at InterQuest. And somewhere around 2010, after all these classes, and I came to this realization: I'm a seminary student. Oh my goodness, I'm a seminary student. And I got to thinking, well, maybe I should act that way. And those of you who know me will know it didn't change NASCAR one bit. So I decided to make my commitment being ordained. Seems like a logical thing, right? You're in seminary, there's got to be a goal at the end of it, might as well be ordination. And so that became my focus. Wrong focus. Because, and I won't go into all the details, but options began presenting themselves. Choices began presenting themselves. And they were all options that seemed logical and practical, seemed in alignment with where I was. And there came a point, though, where life forced me to sit and actually listen to that still, small voice of God. And in that place, I had to admit that those choices were not mine. They were everyone else's. They were perfect for everyone else, but not for me. And I have to tell you, I struggled with that. Because in some ways, I will tell you, it was the most difficult time in the last many years. Because in coming to that realization and actually vocalizing it, I hurt a lot of people that I know. I confused them. They didn't understand it, and they were trying. But it was a difficult time, and every once in a while, it kind of put me at odds. But in that space of purity of heart came this knowing. And I knew that I was doing what I had to do, and I knew that my focus needed to change. And that knowing actually gave me the courage to recommit. So, today, my focus is not on being ordained. My focus is not on being called the Reverend Robbie Hunt. And I realize that that probably sounds pretty wacky to you, because I'm standing here today doing this message because it is part of the requirement of full ordination at Interquest. This isn't to say that ordination is not a goal of mine. Did you hear that, Cindy? Because it is. It is one of the things that I am most focused on right now. And I'll admit, in the past year, some of my very small test scores you may look at them and think, how focused is she? But even that I've had to let go of. You know? And even though I made 90s and 100s in those metaphysics classes, well, I am where I am. And I've had to even let go of that. What I ended up doing is making a choice to recommit to Spirit. And in that recommitment, I am totally open to how Spirit asked me to be of service. Ordained or not, here at Interquest or not, here in Georgia or somewhere else, whether I'm understood by the world or not. I made the recommitment to Spirit. I made this recommitment to the teachings of Jesus the Christ, to that master teacher and all these other master teachers and enlightened beings who bring this truth to me. And now, I am committed. I'm committed because I know in the stillness of my heart that I'm doing the right thing. And I take it bit by bit. I get up on Saturday morning and I come to class. On Friday night, I sit down and do my homework. Should have done it sooner than that, but at least I made the commitment. I get it done on Friday night. But you see, there comes with that this point of knowing. And I don't know where that path is going to take me, but I know that when I walk in that door on Saturday morning, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And that's what Spirit asked me to do. Peter had these times when he failed in his commitments. There's another time when Jesus is walking on the water. There's a storm, but even in that storm, he's walking on the water. And Peter says, "My Lord, let me come out there and walk with you." And so he does. And he's walking on the water. Until that split second of doubt, and then boom, he is in the ocean and needs to be rescued. But the thing that Peter did was that he got up and he kept walking. He kept walking. He committed, and then eventually he recommitted until that alignment went into alignment with the heart of God. At the beginning of my message, I said to you, why did I get the topic of recommitment? And I guess when you take a look at the journey that I've been on, and that Interquest is one of the places that helped me with that journey, I guess it seems appropriate that I would talk to you about recommitment. Recommitment changes your choices. It creates your reality. And it creates your experiences. Recommitment gives you the opportunity to realign your heart with the heart of God. And I can tell you from everything that I know, there is no more powerful place to make your choices and to make your commitments than from that spot, aligning your heart with the heart of God. But the first step is that you got to be still. So, are you ready to be still for a moment and listen to what the heart of God has to say to you? So take a moment, put your feet on the floor, close your eyes. Feel the chair that is supporting you. Feel the room that you're in. Be present and conscious to where you are right now. Let the cares and the concerns of the day, just put them aside for right now. If you want to pick them up later, you can, but for right now, just put them aside. Be consciously aware that there is a beautiful, warm, golden light that is descending over you, over this room, over this church. And that this column of light is God. It is the voice, it is the touch, it is the feel of God. And as you are in this space, you know that there is no separation between you and God. You and God are one. And in this column now, just lift. You're lifting up in this column. You lift out of the confines of this room, out of the confines of this gravity and of this earth. And as you are lifting and lifting, you can see that beautiful Mother Earth below us, the beautiful planet that we call home. And you stop in that space. And in this space, it is still and it is calm. You don't hear anything. Perfect peace, perfect love, and complete safety. From this column, there is a light that comes from it, and it easily and it gently, ever so gently, enters into your heart. And as it enters into your heart, there is this feeling of love. There's this feeling of connection that maybe you've never experienced in your physical world. And you know this is the love of God. And now that light, that column, presents to you words or sounds or images or feelings. And you're totally receptive to it. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you even understand it. Just be with that information, that energy. You are now feeling, hearing, and experiencing the still, small voice of God. In this space, from your mind and from your heart, ask God to show you a commitment that you originally made that didn't turn out quite the way that you had expected. And as that's being shown to you, see now that column, that ray that has come into your heart. See it move easily, gently through your heart, going through the reaches of your heart where bits and pieces, fragments of that commitment are still lying around. And you can see now that beautiful light transforming and healing the broken pieces of that commitment. See the people that were involved in that commitment, even yourself, and see that healing love of God, that transformative love of God, healing and transforming at levels that you may not even understand. God, our Father, our Mother, bless each one here today. Bless the open heart that they have, the open heart that wants to experience all of life, commitments, engagements with our brothers and sisters. And I ask that in this space they completely feel your love. That they feel the presence of the transformative nature of your love. And that they open their heart and allow that transformation to occur. Bless each dear one here today. Make their walk with you so real and so personal. We thank you. So it is. And now in this space, you'll see that column of that ray just gently pull back from your heart. Send a ray of love from your heart to the heart of God. And thank you. And thanking God for this wonderful experience. And now you descend back down from that column, easily and gently, and you find yourself back here on Mother Earth, back in this room at Inner Quest, and back in your chair, completely safe and sound, totally transformed. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Lawyers love what they call the litmus test. It's a test in which a single factor becomes the sole criteria for how a decision is made. This week, I encourage you to make the small, still voice of God in your heart your litmus test. As you're looking at choices, looking at possible commitments, go back to that small, still voice. See if it aligns. Let that alignment be your litmus test. And I can promise you, it will make your choices clearer, and it will make your commitments easier to maintain. Letting it be so. And so it is.